So Glossier is a venture-backed, direct-to-consumer beauty startup launched in 2014 off of the back of Into the Gloss, which is a beauty blog I launched out of my apartment in New York City back in 2010. We've since raised over $35 million from venture capitalists in New York, Silicon Valley. We have global aspirations to be the first beauty lifestyle brand. And we have our roots in editorial. So what does that mean? Into the Gloss is a little beauty blog that now has about 2 million unique visitors a month from around the world. It's about 50% international, a lot from Europe, about 50% domestic. And the goal of Into the Gloss is really to interview these very powerful women in the art, fashion, and tech world, so everyone from Isabel Marant to Ariana Huffington, about their beauty routines, and ask them to kind of come out in the open and share details, tips, and tricks on what they use and why. And what I learned, which was really fascinating from interviewing all of these women on the floor of their bathroom, looking through all of their beauty products and their medicine cabinets, was that a lot of these very powerful women happened to be very insecure about what they knew about beauty, what they knew or what they didn't do. So I'd say, what's your favorite, tell me about your beauty routine. And they would say, oh, me, I'm really low maintenance. I'm not sure. And then you say, no, come on, what's your favorite moisturizer? What's your favorite mascara? Like, you've got to have one, even if you don't really wear that much makeup. And finally, they'd get to talking. And I started realizing that the reason there's this kind of beauty shaming is because we've been brought up, and I'm a millennial, guilty, to believe that only experts can tell us what to do. Only these brand-appointed beauty experts or celebrities know the answer, when in fact, all of us have very valuable opinions.
You started Into the Gloss years ago, 5 years ago? 5 or 6 years ago?
Nearly, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time you had sort of this full-time job working as a stylist with Vogue, Condé Nast. How did you take the time to start a company in your spare time?
I mean, pretty simply, probably like a lot of entrepreneurs who are here or who are watching, it all started with, a seed of an idea, and I worked on Into the Gloss, which is a beauty content destination with a little bit over 1 million unique visitors a month to date now. But back in 2010, I was a fashion assistant at Vogue, and I worked on Into the Gloss from 4 in the morning till 9 a.m. It's like an online magazine, so writing, photography, art direction, and the idea behind Into the Gloss then and still now is that it is a editorial platform that focuses very much on beauty as an element of personal style. So so many of beauty purchasing decisions today are made via friend-to-friend recommendation, and Into the Gloss is an editorial platform that really celebrates women sharing with one another, very inspirational women like Ariana Huffington or Isabel Marant. We interview a lot of very high-profile women around the world, but the main takeaway is that you're getting sort of peer recommendations from some of the coolest women in the world.
When did you realize that this was really a business and not just a blog or a side project or a passion project?
Probably when I realized that you can make money on publishing through advertising, and we were very fortunate with Into the Gloss to have Lancôme, which is of course part of L'Oreal, the biggest beauty company in the world, as one of our first advertisers. So granted, it was a check for like a couple $1,000s, but that set us off, and now we have a very healthy publishing business for Into the Gloss.
And you've raised some money first for Into the Gloss and now with the latest incarnation of Glossier. September 2013, it was a $2 million seed round?
Yes. So in 2013, so Into the Gloss was entirely self-funded for the first couple of years. Then, as we set out to, I could hear you. Did you guys all hear her?
It made me feel really important, though, like that I was getting touched up.
So we raised $2 million because we were about to build Glossier, and of course, publishing online is can be something that you can do for very little, with very little overhead, depending on what you're doing. But it's something that required very little resource. But creating a physical product line and the capital it takes to produce beauty products and create formulas from scratch and hire experts in the field is certainly took a little bit of cash. So that's why we raised $2 million as a seed round back in 2013. It was led by Kirsten Green from Forerunner Ventures, who of course is behind Warby and Bonobos, Dollar Shave Club. So she has a lot of experience in retail and now the branded e-commerce space. It was very important to me to have a female venture capitalist as our lead investor. It was certainly one of the more fluid, natural conversations I had with venture capitalists because she, knew what foundation was.
Right.
And no offense to the guys out there, but yeah. So that was our first round, and then we closed a Series A in 2014, right before Glossier launched. That's led by Thrive Capital.
And was there a difference that you saw at all in the response of investors from when you went out the first time to pitch a beauty-oriented company to the second time? Has it gotten better? Has there been more understanding in the investor community of how huge this market is?
I wouldn't say there was a big sea change that I noticed from raising the seed to raising the Series A. I think there are a couple of things that remain true throughout both experiences. One is that beauty is a $250 billion industry. It's had several billion-dollar exits just in the last 10 years. So it's also an industry that hasn't changed an enormous amount. I would say in the last even 50 years. So I think it's an industry that is ripe for disruption. I think most venture capitalists recognize that. I also think they recognize the fact that Into the Gloss and our team had developed an enormous amount of trust with consumers around the world. We have a global following of women who never cease to inspire us and who never who always kind of push the company forward. It's very much a two-way conversation we have. And I think the smartest beauty companies and probably some of the smartest brands recognize that brands today are built, not just in a bubble. It's not kind of a one-way conversation. Consumers have a lot to say, and it's so important, I think, to listen to them.
In a lot of ways, it seems like this is an inverted path that Glossier and Into the Gloss has taken, because right now I think of a lot of big companies, whether they're in beauty or in other industries, they've got the brand and then later they're thinking about how to have content or how to do content marketing or how to have a social presence. Mm-hmm. And you and Glossier kind of did it the opposite way. You started with this personal brand that you have and this brand, and now you're making products. How has that path taken shape? Really organically.
I think something that I say a lot to our team is that the mission for us is the same. The medium has just changed. So I think the first part of I think what beauty needed was this place that editorially really made beauty personal and made it very much a conversation and sort of enlightened and activated an entire cohort of consumers, of beauty consumers who otherwise may have been passive beauty consumers who weren't maybe super excited about their routines or weren't really up for talking about it.
So you created this real digital community on the blog, and you started to get some feedback and information, and that eventually led to the actual launch of Glossier. Mm-hmm. And how much of the feedback you get from your community is embedded in your product? Can you talk a little bit about that whole cycle and how that works?
Sure. So, originally it was very kind of analog, right? We post a couple times a week on Into the Gloss for 2 years, and what that resulted in was this amazing set of market research, essentially. 200 interviews, just more comments than any major media platform that was a fashion platform like a Vogue.com or an Elle.com or something like that on this little blog talking about beauty products. And it was pretty much just, reading it and listening to what people were saying about this disconnection from the brands that they were purchasing the products from. So it wasn't just about innovation in products. Certainly we all know there are thousands of beauty products. There is so much. There's almost an overwhelming amount, right? And you need two things to kind of cut through the noise. One, you need people to help you cut through the noise. And in a recent survey today, something like 58% of people ignore the salesperson when they go into a store, whether it's Sephora or somewhere else, and they find their own person on text or somewhere. Hey, I'm standing in Sephora. What mascara should I get, right? They're not talking to the salesperson. So you need a change in regime of how do you connect with a human being to help influence what you get. But you also need brands that listen to you. So because of this, kind of archaic business model of brand selling to basically being in cahoots with retailer who then sells to customer, the customer and the brand relationship is totally fragmented. These big companies do not know who their customers are. They don't have the data. They can't serve them. They can't ask them how it went. They can't say, is there something else you want? And they're really hamstrung by these relationships with the retailer because they drive all their business. So it's going to be really hard for them to pivot to, become e-commerce experts, right? And take all of that business online from Macy's or wherever it may be. But fundamentally, what we think about is that broken, customer relationship and how they're missing out on such a huge opportunity to better serve customers. So the way that we do that is anywhere from, asking our customers, we want to make a face wash. What's your dream face wash? And having thousands of comments and learning about what ingredients they want, what they don't want, who would play it in a movie. People actually answered that question. They said Eddie Redmayne would play my dream face wash. Julianne Moore would play it. Emma Stone. I'm like, well, thank you, first of all, for answering the question. But secondly, they're all redheads. What does this mean, right? So we made a very sort of creamy, sensitive skin face wash that's now our third best-selling product. And so there's countless ways. There's not some machine learning algorithmic exact science way. We're not sort of one-for-one crowdsourcing, but through a variety of channels and factors and our ability to understand so much about the repeat purchasing behavior from our customers, the lifetime value, whether she's a skincare customer, whether she's a makeup customer, how to create or serve her better skincare items or versus better makeup items. It's really a whole new era for what you can build when you have that relationship with the customer.
Yeah, Glossier is really well known now for listening to customer feedback in your product development cycle. And essentially now, anyone on your team can put a blog post up on Into the Gloss saying, we have this brand new product idea. What are your opinions? What do you all want? How would you describe the most ideal texture or fragrance or shade or price point? And how do you know whose opinions to listen to? I don't know. How do you listen to your gut? What is that like for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, traditionally, I'm not sure how beauty brands arrived at what products to make, but for us, there's really only one logical conclusion, which is talk to people, whether that's, I have my opinions about products that I like, but having interviewed, hundreds of the most influential women from, politics to art to fashion to, girls on the street who have cool pink hair color and you want to know why. I have certainly a lot of opinions, but what's really more interesting is again, that just having a lot of conversations, and what's better than posting something on Instagram and within 20 minutes having 1,000 responses about whether that red lipstick that we're working on is skewing a little too blue or a little too red, and you've got everyone from a girl in her bedroom in Ohio with 200 followers to Makeup by Mario, who's Kim Kardashian's makeup artist who has 10 million followers writing I think it's a little blue. So I mean, someone's paying him a lot of money to give that feedback, but he's giving it to us for free on our Instagram. So I think it's nice that you can kind of sift through that, and it's really an art and more of an art than a science. We don't one-for-one crowdsource. We don't say tell us exactly what to make and we'll shade match it and we'll send it to you. We really kind of combine our editorial background as beauty editors with hearing 30% of those people saying it's too blue, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's a little too blue.
Was there ever a time when sort of the beauty hive mind was incorrect and you followed an opinion that in fact turned out to be wrong?
I don't think, beauty's so subjective. We were just debating this backstage. We got into a big fight over mascara because I was like, nobody needs a mascara. And she was like, hold on.
No.
I really need one. But,
people-
you're not talking about underwear. It's like you can skip mascara. So you can't be right or, you can't be right or wrong. So we haven't been led astray, but we've definitely had to make some tough calls. When we were making our priming moisturizer Rich, a bunch of respondents said, oh, we really want it in a pump instead of a jar. But when we worked with our chemist and developed this formula that included a lot of their responses about ingredients, we realized we couldn't fit the product into a pump. It wouldn't come out. So we had to go the jar route, and then we explained to everyone this is why it's not in a jar, and now it's one of our best-selling products. So I think it's just about that transparency with the customer and really letting people know that we're indexing on quality always above everything else, and I think that goes a long way.